There seems to be this second roof, which is 2 million, actually learning a lot of lessons from the million to 2 million that you don't learn.
Offering more advanced procedures was one way that we went from 1 million to 2.1. Hiring the right team members that could have the right conversations with patients to convert treatment, to convert patients on the phone, to even get them in to have an opportunity to convert treatment. Adding additional staff to handle increased volume. There were just a lot of different factors along the way.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Dental Marketing Go. On today's episode, we're going to be talking with Dr. Jancy, who's grown her office from 1.5 million to 1.7 million, and now is at $2.1 million as a fee-for-service practice. And she's going to explain the hard part of that journey and the lessons that she's taken away from it and what she plans on doing in 2026. This is an amazing episode, and if you're planning on growing, this is something that you must watch. Make sure you subscribe, comment down below, let us know if you want to see more content like this. Stay tuned. All right, we are back. And Dr. Jancy, the last podcast that you did was really popular. A lot of people liked it, and it was very informative. And I asked you hard questions too. Like I asked you some of the hard stuff that dentists would be like, well, what about this? What about that? And you were able to navigate and explain how you doubled your collections per new patient in 2025. But one of the topics that I personally wanted to talk to you about as a business owner was the pain of kind of growing past certain thresholds. Everybody, when you first buy a practice, you want to get to $1 million. Like everybody's just like $1 million. It's kind of like this magical number.
It's the milestone, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people get there. Like a lot of dentists get there. It's not something that people can't reach or that's, the hardest thing in the world. But there seems to be this second roof, which is 2 million. And you end up actually learning a lot of lessons from the 1 million to 2 million that you don't learn.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I want to talk to you because I know in last 2025, you did 2.1 million in collections. The year before you did 1.7, and the year before that you did 1.5. So I want to talk about that journey and some of the misconceptions, because I think everybody wants to be a $2 million collection practice, but not everybody wants to do what's necessary to be a $2 million collections practice. So I know your dad's a CPA, so you look at these numbers a lot different than most dentists. Just tell me kind of about that journey.
Oh, absolutely. So I'll give you, I know we were kind of wanting to focus on the last 3 years or so, but I'll give you a tiny glimpse into our origination story just so you can have some perspective. So this year in July, we'll be 7 years into our practice. So we're at about 6.5 into ownership. So we bought in June of 2019. And of course, no one knew that 8 months later, we were going to have a pandemic. So at 8 months into ownership, we had to navigate COVID. So that was a lot of fun. So that was basically all of 2020, which, as we know, some of those effects trickled over into 2021. Things still weren't really normalizing. We had our one and only daughter in 2021. So that took me away from the practice for a while, kind of shifted our focus for a season. And when she was 3 weeks old, we still had the vision of what we wanted the practice to be. So we closed on land for our future location that we're now in. We sat on it and paid it down for about 1.5 years until we started doing architectural plans. And then in 2023, in September, we broke ground, and then we moved in June of 24. So 2025 was our first full year in our new building. So that was kind of where we started. We originally bought 2 practices that were unaffiliated from each other, blended them into one practice. That's its own podcast in and of itself. Maybe, lots of growing pains there. Anyway, so between those 2 docs, solo, bread and butter, older docs, they were maybe doing $1 million in revenue. So 6 years ago, we inherited something that was maybe $1 million. And then 6 years later,
Went through a pandemic. Yeah.
Now with that, there's a lot that goes into that. One, it is my husband and I. So it was 2 docs to 2 docs. I've said in other podcasts, we both have additional specialty training through a GPR that does a lot of AV sedation, does a lot of dental implants, full mouth rehabs, things like that. So yes, we do bread and butter dentistry still, but we also do some of the more surgical cases, sedation dentistry. My husband does some root canals and Invisalign. I do more cosmetics. So we are truly comprehensive care. which definitely does impact what your numbers are going to look like. So that's one factor that we need to look at. But also, we've had to really find the right team members, which that saw our vision for growth and that really support us. Because if you don't, our vision was to go from a very insurance driven inherited practice, I'll say, to a fee for service model. And we went from 10 or 12 plans to we now only take 2 directly. So we've dropped 10 in 6 years and been profitable and grown every year. We could not do that without a team that is willing to have those conversations, because it's really easy for a team member to answer the phone and say, yes, we take Aetna, and then we schedule them. It's a lot harder to have a conversation when almost everyone is an out-of-network patient.
Same goes with treatment acceptance, right? It's like, hey, your insurance covers this. Everybody says yes. When you're like, hey, your insurance covers very little of this. It's a whole different ballgame.
So offering advanced procedures was one way that we went from $1 million to 2.1. Hiring the right team members that could have the right conversations with patients to convert treatment, to convert patients on the phone, to even get them in to have an opportunity to convert treatment. Adding additional staff to handle increased volume. There were just a lot of different factors along the way. Dropping insurance plans. We dropped, like I said, we've dropped 10 plans. So what we make per patient has driven our collection per patient up astronomically over the last 6 years, because we're not writing off 50% on a poorly paying plan. So those are just, some tip of the iceberg type things that has contributed.
Also, you had to, as you dropped insurances, you had to ramp up other things like marketing, team members, all the training, all those kind of things.
Absolutely. Having an in-house membership plan, having financing options available, having, like you said, team members that are confident and have the right verbiage to be able to convert these patients, not to be misleading, but to let them know what their options are. Driving up marketing. So yes, it's a trade-off. You replaced it with something else, but something that was more meaningful and impactful to our practice.
Yeah, exactly. So what are some of the things that now looking back, you're like, okay, I probably wouldn't have signed up for this part of it, but now I'm in the middle of it and I have to do it. And the reason I ask this question is I want the listeners to really consider the cost as you move forward and you say, hey, I want to grow my practice. There's good things that come with that, but there's also some really hard things that come with that.
Top 3 things I can think of is anytime you have to change your team dynamic, that can be hard. And finding the right team members is hard, especially in our climate, because after COVID, hiring and what was available completely changed. And as we all know, the hygiene model changed. So many people want to temp, and what you were paying a hygienist before COVID and after has changed drastically. So I would say finding the right team members and retaining the right team members is hard for almost every practice. I feel like we have finally found our core team where we all are bought into the same vision and we all have a clear idea of how we're going to get there. I really believe in almost over communicating with my team. This is our vision. This is how we're going to get there. This is why we're trying to get there. This is how it's going to impact you directly. So they have buy-in. I don't do it in a way where it just helps my pocketbook. It shares the wealth. And honestly, this last year, when we were in a brand new building for the first full year and our overhead increased exponentially, I took a hit, but I still gave them bonuses. And I'm taking them on a cruise in April because they hit their goal. So prioritizing a team that supports you and your growth goals is really important, but that is easier said than done. Finding the right people and training the right people can be very, very difficult. So that's one struggle.
Real quick, before we move on to that one, something I experienced, because I want to know if it's kind of the same or if it's different. So as I grew early on as an entrepreneur, I was like, okay, I need to hustle and I'm really busy. I'm the CEO, chief everything officer, and I need you to just kind of do your job and figure it out. And everybody kind of did that. And we had people who were very autonomous and they really liked that and they did a good job. But then I reached a certain threshold where it's like, okay, that doesn't work at our size anymore. So now we have to systematize everything and put everything into a checklist and an SOP and all those kind of things. And the people they were great people, but there were people who were very independent. Now I was like, no, do it exactly this way. And they were like, well, I don't like that. And we had almost 100% team turnover over an extended period of time. And it was because we went from people who weren't system driven, they were independent, to people who needed to be more system driven. Is that kind of what you experienced, or is it a little bit different? Or
I would say yes. I do agree that you totally have to change and be willing to pivot what your protocols and your procedures are when you're going from 1 million to 1.5 million, and definitely to over 2 million. Like, that has changed. And sometimes our protocol on something will change within the year. We have to be willing to pivot and have a team that is, like you said, open to changes, that they're fluid, that they're willing to learn. They're not just rigid and this is how I do it and I'm in my box. Everybody has to be willing to change things for the greater good. Yes. So the staff that we inherited, I'll say, we only have 2 of them from the original teams. So yes, I do agree that there's a lot of, because it is very different. Each practice is really different. Each stage in your practice is really different. So having those key people and finding people that are willing to, you've got to realize 7 years ago, how different both of those ladies' careers look from what we do now, and people that are willing to take that journey with us. So I mean, we love them for that, but I get where that's really hard for a lot of employees. So yes, to some extent, we've experienced some of the same struggles.
got it. And then, okay, so sorry to derail you. So that was number 1, is changing over your whole team. That's super hard. What was number 2?
Number 2 is dropping insurance. Dropping plans for dentists that you've participated in for forever is scary. There are ways to be more strategic and more methodical and kind of a calculated risk there. Like, you want it to be less than X amount of your gross collection revenue. You want it to be less than, this many patients, what have you. There are some, KPIs that you can look at to kind of help guide you, but it's still scary to rip that Band-Aid off. It's also scary when you're a newer practice early on, dropping those plans because you don't really have that reputation in town. Your brand's not out there. You don't have that reputation with the patients. They haven't been seeing the same hygienist with you for 10 years. So it's scary. I feel a lot more confident now, almost 7 years in, dropping plans, because I have a relationship with these patients and a lot of them are bought into what they know we deliver in our practice.
Well, you've also made it all work for all the other ones too, right?
Okay. Every year that I've dropped some, I've also seen an increase in there's a track record there that is proven. So yes, you do get more confident as you go, and you do feel like you have a strategy, and obviously your strategy is working. So I would say dropping insurance is really scary, and it doesn't need to, I will say, I don't think it needs to be an emotional decision. I think that if that's not something that you're comfortable figuring out if it's a good fit or which plan to drop, there are so many experts in that area that you need to lean on one of those to make sure that you're not kind of having a knee-jerk reaction, because it's like, oh, I'm so tired of dealing with so-and-so, or their fees are crappy, or whatever the case is. That may be true, but if it's a certain percentage of your practice, you need to play the long game. Like, we need to have like an 18 or 24-month plan to drop that insurance, whereas there's other low-hanging fruit ones that we could drop a lot sooner and not be as impactful to your bottom line. So dropping insurance, I think anybody that's ever had insurance play a factor in their practice would agree that that can be very stressful and very scary, especially early on.
So start small would be your first piece of advice, is just drop the little guys first. So that way you can get a taste of it and kind of see what it feels like.
I would say so. Or just lean on somebody that's a consultant in that arena that can tell you, okay, this is how many patients you have on this plan. This is, 30% of your patient population, or this is only 5%.
Yeah, because it's more of a math game, right? It's really a math game.
It is.
It's not a insurance bad, dentist good, or patient good. It's just like, okay, well, we had this many patients that were in network with this particular insurance, and we produced this much treatment, and we collected this much. I think we could replace that very easily, or no, that scares me.
That's 50% of my patients. We're going to have a better exit strategy. So just finding out what your numbers are and then using them to your advantage makes it less terrifying to do it. But yes, initially it was very scary. Now I get excited when I get to drop a new plan.
I know we just had a long conversation about how we're going to drop this one and where we're going to do everything. So it's actually, it's one of those positive things, just like changing to a new team. It's actually a positive thing because you're building out your own culture now, but it's very scary and it's very stressful in the moment.
The growing pains are still there, even though it's going to be a net positive down the road.
Yeah, I track my HRV on this little band, this Whoop band thing, and I can literally go back and tell when I had big team changes where I had to jump in, get my hands dirty. It measures like stress levels and those kind of things.
So, when I had a stressful patient that day, I can go look and know who I saw during that time frame.
Man, that's so funny. The same thing. I literally look back and I was like, oh, that month we changed out 3 people in this department, and that's why that was that way. So, okay. So number 1, changing out your teams. Number 2, dropping insurance. What would you say number 3 is?
Yes. My last one was, and this is going to be different for everyone because the location that they're in is going to be different size-wise. Some people have room to expand. Some people don't. Some people are happy, like they're one doc practice. They never want to get to, 8, 10 ops. So this is kind of one of those practice specific type things. But for us, getting to the point where we realized we were in a lease, it was a larger building, but it was an older building and only a portion of it was the clinical aspect. And for us to really be able to grow into what our brand and our vision was, we knew that we would never get there in that space because it wasn't the right aesthetic. It wasn't the right flow. The ops weren't the right layout. So we just knew going in that we were going to use that as a stepping stone and as a means for our 5-year plan because it was a 5-year lease. So for us, we knew that meant we were going to build something. Our vision, being a 2-doctor practice, was that eventually we wanted to have room for at least 2 more associates. So we went from having 5 functional ops, 6 rooms, to we built out 12. So that was scary for us, even though, again, my dad is a CPA. I crunched every number. We looked at what, we could afford overhead to be when it increased. We were very conservative on our projections, but still in the moment when you go from this tiny overhead rent payment every month to something that's 10x on that, it doesn't matter how much of a financial numbers person you are, it's still scary when you put it into play. So for us, that was stressful just because it was calculated. It made sense on paper, but like dropping insurance, you never know exactly how it's going to happen to play out in reality. So that was very stressful trying to figure out how was 2025 going to go. And it went great. It went as we had projected and planned for it to, but nevertheless, it was something we were married to. It wasn't like insurance where you could go sign up for another plan. Like you've built the building, your name's on it. The bank is coming after you. So that was...
Yeah, your house is on you sign over your house to say, hey, I back this personally.
A lot of people, their significant other, their partner has another job outside of that. So like if things go south for you, they can still foot it. We're husband, wife. All of our eggs are in one basket. So
which is awesome if it pays off, but in the moment
it's stressful because you're kind of going without a security net, right? Like and I think it plays to our advantage because we are all in and we're like, we have to make this work. We're going to pivot and figure out how to make it work. It's like our consultant told us the other day, there was an insurance kind of hiccup this year where a plan split. And she goes, your office motto should be, we do hard things and crush it. Because y'all are just the dig your heels in type and your team is to make things work instead of passively letting them happen to you. And I would dare say that a lot of that is because we don't have, one of us doesn't have a practice elsewhere or have another career. So we do have to make it work. But yes, that was really scary. And we're kind of on we peaked last year and now we're like, okay, we can start to breathe. We'll see it's going to work. And eventually, at about the 3-year mark, it's going to start to really pay dividends. But you got to go through the hard years to get that payoff. And that's not for everybody as well. Just like ownership isn't, having real estate involved isn't for everyone either. Because that's a whole nother layer of stress. that can come into play. But for us and what our goals were, it made sense.
Yeah, when you're a solo dentist and you have a practice, or like it's you and your husband, you were just starting out and you bought this practice, kind of every move that you make to a certain point is just upside. It's like everything that we do is upside, 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 upside. But with this move, it's not all upside. It's like, no. It's actually 2-3 steps backwards. And then we get the big upside. Yeah. And I think every business owner goes through, I know I've gone through that multiple times where it was like, okay, I'm going to have to take a step back personally, financially, to invest in infrastructure to be able to hire these 3 or 4 key people. And that's a lot of money, if you're paying all these people. And then, but if we grow and if it works, the payouts on the other side. And I think that's with buildings is the case. But most people I've talked to, if you pick a good location, like it ends up working out in dentistry. Like it's a high compared to other businesses, I'll say. The other businesses, the fail rate's like 90% or something like that. You talk to a restaurant owner, that's like the fail rate's super high. And so in dentistry, I feel like the success rate is higher. And as long as you're doing a good job and doing what you're supposed to do and you're in a good location. So it seems like you're definitely trending in the right direction. You finished at 2.1 million. What are you kind of excited about now? Like 2026, 2027, like what's the thing now that you've got through those hard things? Now you're like, okay, this is where it gets fun.
So I'm going to go back and touch on something that you said during that, and then I'll answer your question. Absolutely. Because it was for Daniel and I, we took steps back for the greater good, because when overhead increases that much, you're not, or I guess there are practices that you could, but it's unlikely that you're going to be able to pay yourself full whatever you were off of your collections or however that was, bonus yourself, whatever pay structure you do as an owner, really fully what you're worth, what you've generated. We definitely had to leave money in the practice. Now, we had kind of set, okay, this is what we have to pay ourselves. This is what we're comfortable with. And we were able to do that. But that wasn't really what we were generating. So you do have to be realistic during a time period, most likely, about, okay, I'm going to take a personal pay cut, but it's going to work out for me exponentially later. Because now my practice can pay my real estate holding LLC rent. So now I have a second stream of income. Then, like I said, in another 2 years.
It's very similar, Dr. Jancy. It's like, do I want to go to school for 7 years to become a doctor and have $500,000 in debt? It's like, no, no, I don't want to do that. But it's like, well, what if it works though? And it's like, there's a lot of sacrifice to that decision. I feel like this is the same exact thing, just more in the business sense now, that you're just like, okay, I'm going to make this calculated risk, but to the upside, it's in my advantage.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to kind of touch on what you had alluded to there. As far as what I'm excited for in 2026 is we dropped yet another's. We had a plan that kind of split. It used to be you had to take the PPO and Medicare branched itself off. So now it's going to be that much easier for me to drop the PPO. So I'm really excited about that. They worked that to my advantage. So I'm excited that I'm going to get to drop another one a lot easier. And then there will be one. So I'm excited there. I'm also excited that freed up my schedule for some more elective type procedures that we're going to try to focus on this year. My husband really wants to grow how many aligner cases he does. I'm really wanting to grow year over year, how many kind of smile makeover, veneer type cases I'm doing. So it freed up some time in the schedule that was insurance driven to have more out of network cash patients to do these elective procedures that we really enjoy doing. So I'm excited to see how that aspect of our practice grows over the course of this year. I'm also really excited, and my team is, that they crushed their goal last year. So we're doing an office cruise in April. So really fun, just team building something away from work to reward all of their hard work, because I couldn't do what I get to do without them. So I'm just really excited. Our goal this year is to land somewhere in between 2.4 and 2.5 million. So we did 2.1. So I'm, hoping that we get another $300,000 to $400,000 increase like we did last year. So that's where my immediate goal is. So my next slightly longer term goal is and I'll let y'all know how this goes in a future podcast with Gary, hopefully, but how you get from 2 to 3 million.
Yes, let's go. That's awesome. Different levels, new devils is the thing, right? It's like, hey, we're going to get here. And then you get here and you're like, yep, yep. But it's, you know what, to me, this is what makes business so fun is that we get to do this. Like I get the opportunity to do this and it is high stakes, high reward, but it is fun and you're helping people along the way. And I know you love your team. You have a great team. You have a great attitude. I really, Dr. Jancy, and I know I've told you this before, but I really appreciate your abundance mindset and just the way that you approach problems. Like, okay, this is a problem, but here's how we're going to figure it out. You are very special in that way, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate that. But yes, I will say it is fun. The net outcome is usually good and fun, but I'm definitely not sitting here that there's not days that are hard and there's not days that you're stressed and there's not days that my aura ring is like, what in the world are you doing with your life? So as a business owner, no matter how much success you have on paper and how much growth you have, we all end up in the trenches. And I think that, like you said earlier, dentistry is very isolating, or it can be very isolating. And we tend to compare what we see of other practices and what the outward, what we hear from who's down the street and who's at the meeting and what's going on. And we don't get the full picture. And we're not comparing apples to apples. And most dentists are type A and very perfectionistic, and we're very hard on ourselves. So I want to be fully transparent with who's listening and say, yes, like I have gone from here to here, and my goal is to go from where I'm at now to this and to continue growing. But I don't want to come across as it's always easy, it's always wonderful, because it's not. And I feel like a lot of people have that struggle, but it's not talked about enough in dentistry. And I think that's why a lot of you do see negative outcomes sometimes in mental health and things like that. So it is fun. I do love what I do. I do love treating patients. I do love numbers more than most. But even when I have all the facts and I understand my numbers and I make calculated risk, sometimes there's still a struggle and it's still hard and you do question yourself. So I want people to understand that if that's the season that they're in, that's okay too. But they don't have to stay there. They just need to lean on the right people to help them figure out how they get to where they want to be from that place.
Don't let the mindset trap you. I don't know if you've ever seen that, like it's a social media post. It's very popular. I've seen it multiple times where it's like, pick your hard. It's like being overweight is hard. Working out is hard. Being poor is super hard. Making money is really hard too. So everything's hard. There's nothing that's easy. It's just like pick the hard that you want. And I think that's what boils down to what you're saying is like, yeah, it was hard to $1 million. It's hard at 2 million. It's going to be hard at 3 million. And you're going to have different problems and different things pop up. And I agree with you. I feel that dentistry is uniquely, like the whole industry is like negative on itself. Like there's a lot of dogpiling. And I just love when people are very honest. And I have a couple other dentists that I work with, I create content with, and they're just like, hey, I stunk at this. And it took me 3 years to figure out, but I figured it out. And I think that's so helpful to the industry because it allows people to set realistic expectations. And my favorite saying is, the grass may be greener on the other side, but it might be because they have a septic tank over there. So you don't know.
Don't know, right? It's easy to see the facade or hear what, social media, everybody wants to put their highlight reel out there, right? But at the same time, I just like to be more realistic where, yes, like we have had a lot of positives but at the same time, we still have our own struggles as well. And it just makes us human, right? But how we navigate those and how we handle those, and especially if they're thrown at us unexpectedly, I think is what really it comes down to. And how you grow from that, how you pivot from that is what's important. Not that it happened, but what did you do with it? And how did you take a negative into a positive? I know probably not everybody that's listening is religious, and that's totally cool. So I don't want to like muddy the waters. But for me personally, like my favorite Bible verse is all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. So like that's my personal life motto. And I think that that translates even to into like a secular world into a certain extent where it's like you can take bad things that happen and come across your path and turn them out to be a good thing in your practice. But just surrounding yourself by a community, I think is a great starting point to do that.
I love that Bible verse too. My favorite is Proverbs 10:20. The blessing of the Lord maketh rich, and he addeth no sorrow with it. And I love the Romans 8:28 that you quoted as well. So that's awesome, Dr. Jancy. And thank you so much for the transparency and letting us peek behind the curtain. And I look forward to doing the next one with you. I want to do one talking about how I know you're working on your systems now of like how to get more aligners and how to get more smile makeovers. And I'm excited about what you're doing for that. So
yeah, we are too. So we just had a big meeting with our team and we are kind of brainstormed some different things. So I'll be excited to see what that looks like over the summer when we have about 6 months under our belt and see how that shakes out and what we learn from it. Because, right, like we just talked about, some things are going to stick and be great. And some we're going to be like, nope, that didn't work. Let's pivot and come up with something new. So it'll be exciting to see where we're at with that and what got us there or what we learned from it along the way.
Awesome. I didn't know we were going to do Bible verses on this one. This is a good podcast.
I didn't either, but it just fit for me personally. So just throwing it out there.
I love it. Thanks, Dr. Jancy.